Do you want to go into presenter mode maybe so that it covers the screen because the writing is very small on my side?
Is it?
Yeah, so if you press play from current slide.
Sorry, Nick.
Hello.
What am I doing with the presentations?
So you are going to do exactly what you did for Sophia, where you are just pressing next, next, next.
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay, perfect. 100%. Ah, there we are. Okay, Shakir, the ground is yours. I'm going to switch off my audio and my video, and it's all yours. Good luck.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So understanding poverty, causes, effects, and solutions, that was what was asked of us. One is a global perspective and one is according to South Africa. So what is the definition of poverty? What are the global statistics on poverty? And why addressing poverty is important? If we understand poverty in South Africa, let's just go first for the definition. Poverty is a state or condition in which an individual lacks the financial resources and essentials for a basic standard of living. The person doesn't have just the basics. I think it was Maslow who said, your hierarchy of needs, the person needs at least to be able to eat, drink, a housing, clothes, and the other thing, which is parental guidance. Nevertheless, they lack the basic standard of living. And poverty can have a diverse environmental, legal, social, economical, and political cause and effects. I don't just want to read out the slide, but that's basically some things that you can find on Google, right? When you look at poverty and you look at poverty around us, for example, in South Africa, poverty is extreme everywhere you drive. I mean, in December, we were in Cape Town. You drive in Cape Town, it's beautiful. We all want to live in Cape Town, the beautiful beaches, the beautiful hotels, etc., and scenery. And then just a few kilometers is Kailicha, and you get Mitchell's Plain. And you look at how much poverty there is, and you think to yourself, like, where is the balance here? Okay, most of the squatter camps have satellite, right? I don't know how they get that, but anyway, and some of them are even double story, much to my surprise. But yeah, it's extreme. And when I looked at the topic, obviously I first Googled to see what topics we can find, and this one caught my attention. When you look at South Africa, 63% of people are poor. What does this mean? 63%, 37,800,000 people are poor. 37,800,000 people are poor. That's a lot of poverty. That's more than half of our population, which are without the basic needs. So a question came to mind, and then you need to answer this question as well as we go along. If a person, I'm going to use my own family first, right? My children, if we're not at home, they feel poor. They feel poor because we haven't cooked. But there's baked beans, there's other kind of whatever small snacks that they can make. Maybe there's a loaf of bread and butter that they are able to put on the bread and eat as a snack or fill their stomach or belly, whatever it is. As far as food is concerned, can we call that poor? So how many people in South Africa from the 63% are actually saying that they're poor when they do have something to snack on, something for later, inshallah? Nevertheless, if you look at South America, 27, I'm talking of the continent on a whole, if you look at a global statistic, 27% of South Americans are poor, Nigerians, 46% of them are poor. So why is addressing poverty so important, right? Because we're talking of human beings here. When I look at a person, And I see this person every morning when I drop my child off at school. This person puts something, his hand to his mouth, indicating, I want food. Do I feel sorry for that person and sympathize? Do I empathize with that person? That actually, I'll give you an example of empathy where one of my colleagues from school, I see him begging in Benoni. And I always look and look at him and tell my children, that could have been me. What if that was me? What if God said that, you know what? Instead of this guy, his name is Vinesh, instead of him, you are going to be standing, and I empathize with the person. Or I could look at him and say, this guy was lazy in class, I remember. And that is why he's here. But we'll get into that, and I'm not there to judge him as well. But looking at human being on the whole, did they choose it? Is this what their fate is all about? Is this how they go through faith? Is it a bad thing? All these questions flood your mind, and you think to yourself, yo, am I rich? Am I poor? Am I middle class? How do people class? I mean, this afternoon while listening to a video, and a word that came is the lower class. You get the lower class and the unclassed people. That means they're so poor that they don't even fall into a lower, middle, or higher class as far as poverty is concerned. And so it needs to be addressed. It needs to be, as a human being, you can't just see a person suffering in whatever it may be, whether he is lazy, whether he is generally just in a poor situation. You can't just see it and not have an effect, not let it have an effect on you in any way at all. So having understood a little bit, obviously because of time constraints, having understood a little bit of of the definition of poverty. So the causes of poverty, when a person says I'm poor, what could this mean? It could mean that he doesn't have a job, or he's earning very little. When I looked at the food poverty line, in other words, how much must a person be earning a day in order for him to suffice for that day, in order for him to get through that? The one answer came as 25 rand. I'm like, 25 bucks a day, what can you buy with 25? But and I thought, oh no, but I buy Go Slow and Dragon all the time, and that comes to 15 rand, and I still got change, right? But nevertheless, 25 rand a day, what can you buy? If that man is earning 25 rand standing at the robot or the traffic light, can that be sufficient for his family? If you look at ShopRite sells about 8 rand, 10 rand. At the moment, the cheap bread is 10 rand at ShopRite. And it's lekker, right? We're not saying it's not nice. It's lekker. We buy it for our special foods. Is it enough? So they've come in 2024 May. They came in at 561 rand a month as far as the poverty line is concerned. Then they got the lower bound and the upper bound. I didn't quite understand that, but we'll get explanation of that later on. So unemployment. Person is unemployed, definitely he's going to struggle. He's going to be poor, unless he's got a great inheritance somewhere. And obviously lower wages. When you look at what you call minimum wage is sitting at around 4,300 at the moment, right? Can a person survive on 4,300? Wow. It's when you look at it, it's like, what are you going to do? Because from that lower, that means a minimum wage, you got to find a rent, you got to find airtime, you got to find taxi fare, all of those things. And I promise you, I'm not looking down. We're actually looking at it with the eye of empathy as to what if I was in this situation? How would I go through that? Me being such a lazy person. Wow. Lack of education. One of the huge reasons of poverty is because a person doesn't study, right? We can obviously put question marks to that because we know of people who are qualified and do not have jobs as well. However, because of poverty, they cannot get proper education. So that's one of the cause of poverty. One of the effects of poverty is the person is now, he just has to go into a mainstream school. Mainstream school, I got nothing against the mainstream school. However, I have taught in a semi-private school, and I can tell you, guarantee you, there is a difference. We've had drug problems, we've had all different types of problems, the same things that you have in a mainstream school, but not to the extent that you have it in your public schools. And so the child that doesn't have parents that can afford a better school is forced to send the child to a mainstream school where the numbers alone are absolutely mind-boggling. I mean, I was teaching at 25 per class minimum, right? And the maximum that it could go to was 30. The largest class I had was 33, and it was overcrowded. Some of these schools are sitting at 70 per class. That is, wow. That alone is the next point of overpopulation in the class. And then overpopulation, obviously, there's so many people. Everybody wants to go for that one job. Who's going to get it? Let's not even go into racism and all of those things which come about. Racism played a huge part here, where a black South African nowadays can get the job faster than a white South African. That was a huge topic which I didn't want to go into and try and see what it's all about, but I had no choice at the end. And then comes laziness. Poverty. Now, you may think that, okay, laziness caused the poverty, but no, not necessarily. The community that I was living in before the farm, you had people who said, why must I work when I'm getting a stipend? Why must I work, not a stipend, a parcel? Why must I work when I'm getting a parcel? And so they just remained in that suffering. May God bless them and save us all. Then another political cause of poverty is political instability. Do we really need to go ANC all now? I'm ANC member, but do we really need to go ANC all now? And know that, uh, nobody can still answer what happened to the 500 billion during COVID. Anyway, and corruption, that's self-explanatory. Natural disasters. Yo, when you look at natural disasters, you can be rich and you don't have insurance. And you buy a tsunami-ridden place, and one day everything comes and it just hits. May God keep us safe. Or an earthquake or whatever else that comes about. It just comes and it takes everything. Likewise with climate change, where we're losing so much of the Alaskan and the ice places, and the sea is growing, and then tsunami grows even more. It becomes very difficult on the people. It becomes absolutely strenuous. I mean, now the man has to go and build a house, but he doesn't have the manpower to help him rebuild his house. So he has to take the children who now have to leave school and help the father build. And that's just the cycle of poverty continuing. 2 minutes ago, they were rich. The next second, earthquake hits, and that's it, they're poor. So, yes, the natural disasters and health issues and pandemics. We know about COVID. I remember the one person in our community was earning 40,000 Rand before COVID hit. 40,000 Rand a month. And he was living in a plush area, beautiful area. And when COVID hit, he was earning 2,000. 2,000. I can't imagine. I can't imagine what that man went through. But it's 2,000 more than what other people are earning. Many of them are going through, they don't earn anything. And again, health issues. The child cannot study, the child cannot go work, or the person, I mean, not the child cannot go work, we don't want child labor, but the person cannot go work. He has a disability which he cannot overcome, like Oscar, and he just gets a pension, or not a pension, a SASA. He just gets SASA, and he tries and he makes it through that. I mean, SASA alone is like 2,000 rand. That's half of what minimum wage is. Many old people, yo, it goes much deeper. Many old people, they look after the grandchildren who are getting some sort of SASA, but the same grandchildren are stealing from them and being drugs, and the sickness just goes on. So poverty is a concern. Poverty is not just something that you can ignore. Hunger, malnutrition, poor health, low life expectancy, all these things form part of the effects. With a person, obviously, one is when you nag with your spouse and you're absolutely angry with your spouse and you go and eat, you go and sleep. And the other is where you can't eat because you don't have. You cannot have anything because there's nothing. So I don't know what it is to be in that situation, and may God keep us safe. But the thing is, there are people, and if these stats are correct, 37,800,000 people, I hope I'm getting it right, not like Zuma, but anyway, 37,800,000 people are going to bed hungry. And so you do need places like your SENZEF, you do need places like UNICEF and your PMC, or all these things to step in and say, we will help you out. But to what effect? I remember having an argument with one of the members of this organization, where we were fighting for development. So one of the first questions that I answered when starting with Nick was, what are your values? And I remember writing down development as number 3, because we want to see people develop. And it's a question of teaching a guy to fish or giving him a fish. And what the person that was running the organization said, gave me a beautiful answer, without doubt. He said, not every person likes fishing. Not every person wants to fish. So you gotta treat every person according to what their wants and needs are. However, are people so genuinely lazy or just not interested to learn and beat this poverty? I remember also telling my students that you can't tell me there's no work. Now, I know this is a bold statement to make. I said, go and cut grass and earn 20 rand an hour for cutting grass. And then they said, no, man, why? We want to earn 2,000 an hour, which brings me to a point which I didn't add on here, I suppose, and it's greed. Now, you get greed from the person who wants to come out of it, and you get greed from the employer. Employer greed is, I need to make money for myself and my family, and then I will give you below minimum wage, and you just suffer and you stay in your hut. And employee greed is, I want to earn so much so fast that if I don't get it, then I'd rather just stay in my dying corner. And that's how it goes on. Increased crime and violence. Again, self-explanatory. I need to bring home food for my family. Although here also greed will play its role, but increased crime and violence, a person is desperate, he's hungry, his children haven't eaten. That's a huge thing, not because of laziness like mine, but anyway, his children haven't eaten. It's going to make a man go mad. So if he can get that slight chance where he won't get caught and he'll steal something, he'll do it. And in stealing it, if he gets caught, then he might resort to violence. Lack of education, like we said, when it came to previous point, lack of education, the person is poor because he refused or couldn't or whatever the excuse is, but he didn't get educated. And then again, you get homelessness and poor living conditions. I remember seeing how happy the one homeless person was when he had a fridge box. So they live on the street. If they get a card box, they're happy. If you get a fridge box, it's a double story, it's a mansion. And if it's a double door fridge, you do the maths. So, how do we sort this problem out? What is a way forward? It's easy to say, you know what, go and study. But what ways are we, if we had to say, right, you know, as a class at Erudite, we're gonna go there and we're going to fight poverty. How do we say job creation? I can't just say, you know what, come work for me. How many people am I going to get to work for me? I won't be able to afford all of that. But in creating a job, you look at like, okay, few months ago, I spoke to two of the guys that weren't employed at the farm. And I told them, okay, I'm going to buy switch and you're going to stand at the robot and whatever we make, we're going to split. In that way, I'm going to have a side job and you're going to be able to have a job. And we can move forward in that way. And anyway, it didn't work out, but both of them are employed different places on the farm or in the same area. And lucky for them, shukar. And fair wages, as we mentioned of the employer. He needs to get rich. He needs to show the Ferrari and he needs to show the Lamborghini. It reminds me of a meme. I mentioned it few times in the last month or so, where the guy, he looks at his employee staring at the boss's Ferrari. The employee is staring at the boss's Ferrari, and the boss comes and asks the employee, "Smart, eh?" And the employee says, "Yes." And he says to him, "Well, my son, if you work hard and you work smart, I will buy a new one next year." The guys that I told, he said, "Yo, that is painful." Improving education access. For example, Erudite, beautiful example. And if this slide goes international, it's an advert as well. We want people to learn at the best possible access. So I could have said before COVID, you know what, because everybody has to be locked down, nobody can be educated. And then Zoom was out before that, but nevertheless, we use it even more. And then you got Google Meet and then whatever else there is. But there's always an excuse to learn if we want it, and there's always an excuse to not learn if we don't want it. Improving education access, find the means. I was at a workshop on Saturday where the teacher has 100 in the class, and he asked me, how do we do that? Because you start taking register at 3 o'clock, by 20 past, you're still taking register. How am I going to get teaching? So I said, make placards, paste it on the wall, accidental learning, become an actor, ask questions, throw it around, make a plan. Don't just sit there and say, I can't. And then obviously healthcare support. Whoa, that is a whole topic on its own. Healthcare support and how do we improve the healthcare in South Africa? Government policy, social welfare, sustainable development, like government policies, that is self-explanatory. Social welfare, self-explanatory. Sustainable development, for example, you find a place where they don't have lights, and then you put in solar panels and put it in material that can't be sold. So that is like the ideal, right? We don't live in an ideal world, but that's an idea. We can't just say that it's going to be stolen, so let's not put it. let's put it, and if it gets stolen, we'll find funding for it to get replaced. That is also far-fetched, but yeah, something needs to be done. And economic growth, international aid like UNICEF, community involvement. Community involvement, best thing to do. How can the communities get involved in just put up an advert? We're going to be helping the poor. You'll see how many people come and take selfies by the poor people, and which is uh, not advised. I personally don't like it, but yeah, that's how people get their things branded as well. So because of time, my time is up. We're gonna just quickly recap and on the causes, the effects, and solution. We said some of the causes are because a person is not educated, because a person may be lazy, or the person doesn't have, and the effects of it is they're not going to be eating before they sleep, and they will be able. One of the other effects is uh, they won't be educated. But we have found some solutions. If you want the slide, it will be here. This is the complete slide. We had to make it short. There's much more that could be said on the topic. I don't think I've done justice to it. However, it is a very broad topic to go into. The solutions lie within us, and the role that we play as far as individuals are concerned. It must it must be able to bother us that I'm a human being, the next person is a human being, and that person is suffering. How can I help that person? Even if it is a 1 rand. What can you buy with 1 rand? I don't know, because Chappies is also expensive. But yeah. So together we can fight poverty. Let us try to the best of our ability. Thank you.
All right.
Questions?
Okay. Thanks, Shakir. I'm going to lead up with questions. If anybody else has a question, please put up your hand. So you've given us
Please
an
don't ask a hard
overview
question.
of no. You've given us an overview of the depth of poverty. You asked lots of questions as to what does poverty mean. When you look at it from a social auxiliary work perspective, what is the onus then on the social worker? What do you need to understand when you have a client in front of you, given your view of poverty? What factors do you need to keep in mind?
So I checked this out as well. How does it affect the social worker in South Africa? Can I read it quickly? In South Africa, poverty significantly impacts social worker by creating a high volume of clients with complex needs, leading to immense caseloads for social workers, often requiring them to focus on basic needs like food and shelter rather than deeper issues, while also contributing to challenges like limited access to education, healthcare, and employment opportunities, making it difficult to address the root causes of poverty and empower individuals to achieve long-term stability. Does it answer your question?
It does, but I want to know, for you in your practice, what do you need to keep in mind
As a
about the
social
people
worker,
you'll be working with? Yeah.
as a wannabe social worker. So, where I go into, if I go into a place where there is poverty, again, I have to revert again back now. This person, let me the Jehovah. It says, can you hear me? Hello.
Try again. We lost you there.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the Jehovah's, I'm going to give you an example of social work, but these are propagators, right? So the Jehovah's go into this community, and obviously they want to change people into Christianity. And the first thing they ask them, have you guys eaten? And if that's a poor family, the first thing they do is buy them KFC. So KFC for a poor family is like, wow, this is from heavenly sent. So similarly, when a social worker goes in, you're gonna go in there and you're gonna check your surroundings and you're gonna see, okay, this father is bleeding. But the father was actually the one who was attacking. And so you're going to be empathetic firstly to the father who's bleeding because the blood, even though he was the wrong one here now, you need to actually sort him out, get an ambulance. And then obviously after that, everything will unfold as you go along. I don't know if that makes sense.
So what I'm understanding is, right, what you're saying is we need to be aware of the impact that poverty has within the communities we're working with. So our solutions, our plans, and all of that need to be informed by what the bleeding is, what the actual urgent need is of that community. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think any situation that you walk into, you're gonna see what is the immediate thing to be attended to is, and you take it from there.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Is there any other questions about the understanding of poverty in the social work context that you want to ask Shakir? Anybody have a question? Hands up. Now's the time.
Please ask easy questions.
I see Safia has
Ish.
been standing you deep. She's been supporting you very deeply here.
Yeah.
Elizabeth said that you remind me of beggars. We've engaged with people previously, and some of them would say stuff like they make more money. Sophia mentions that there's ignorance and lack of information as to resources. I think that's very true also. And I think that there's also a thing, yeah, that's quite important that Sophia mentions is we need to capitalize on existing skills already and then connect them with proper service providers, such as NPOs and stuff in the area that can support. So the importance of you within the social auxiliary work is to be a well-connected person who can connect people to different organizations. So Elizabeth would like to know, what does this mean in terms of job creation initiatives? Like when you look at job creation, what do you need to factor in if you are tasked with creating jobs within the community? How do you deal with the high rate of unemployment? What's the research saying is the solution?
Here, I've never dwelled into that. Let me try and answer. Okay, so I go into a community and I look at the community firstly, and you're going to start getting information. Who does what? Who's this family? What do they do? Etc. Obviously, I can't just go and give panados to all of them. You understand? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Obviously, I cannot find a person is an accountant, but he can't find a job. I can't go and say, right, I'm going to put you in KPMG. No. If I can find something within his scope, that's good. However, if he can do something to get him up to the point where he can get into KPMG again, then all is well. If he can do something which is totally out of his scope and still earn money but come out of the poverty bracket, then also is well. So, in as much as job creation from our side or my side or your side may be there has to be a point where somebody wants to meet you halfway and say, okay, you know what, I'm a teacher,
I think
I'm going to do something. I will sweep the street, for example, for now, and work my way out. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think this ties in a lot to what Sophia was saying of meet people with the resources that you currently have and sort of start working towards what is
100%.
actually available rather than what do you want,
100%.
but rather what do we have. Jackie, you had a question you wanted to ask.
I was just going to comment on, and I think Sophia was speaking on it a little bit, that I think one of the major problems is because I look at poverty often and I look at people in poverty and I kind of go, get creative, do stuff, get out there. I kind of want to light a fire under them almost, and I think learned helplessness is actually a major problem as well. I think a lot of people don't know that they can fight for this, that they can get creative, do their own things, be entrepreneurial, find solutions. They've grown up in an environment where nobody does anything, and that's the norm. And so I think potentially something like role models, or just an educating in a way of thinking that people can broaden their horizons and realize I don't necessarily need to wait for something to be handed to me, but I could actually go out and make something myself, make a plan myself. And I think that's a very deep, like we grow up knowing that, but I think many people don't, and I don't think we realize what a privilege that is. Yeah.
I mean,
my 2 cents.
has there ever been more of a middle-aged white soccer mom response to unemployment than just covered in that? All right. I'm just going to say what everyone's thinking. Okay, no, great. That is great. I think it's also waking up in people that they have the opportunity, they have certain tools at their disposal, and being able to access them. I'm just completely taking the piss out of you there. All right, yes.
Poverty is a reality. Can I continue? 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Poverty
You've got like 3 minutes left, and then I'm wrapping you up, and we're getting on to
Yeah.
Jackie.
It is a reality, but in many cases, it's a mindset as well. And believe it or not, collecting can become addictive. So when I get something, I can get addicted to just wanting to receive. And when you give, it's better than taking. So in many cases, and again, I don't want to sit here and criticize poverty or poor people when I haven't walked in their shoes. However, it doesn't mean that I won't classify myself as poor, that I'm rich. You understand? So there's a very broad way of looking at it in eliminating poverty. And like I said, you have to meet each other halfway. I can help you, but you got to help me as well. I don't know if it makes sense. You feel free
It
to
does.
disagree.
It does. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Shiger. I liked it. I think you covered the topic well enough. You gave us an overview. I think more research is obviously required. Your research topic was very broad, right? So one thing to keep in mind when you are researching is ask one question. And if you have the word "and" in it, stop. Right? Ask one question, try and answer one question only, and that makes research a bit more streamlined. I think you bit off a huge chunk of research there, so I can imagine you must have been reading until you were blue to try and understand. But very good presentation.
Are you saying?
I saw the
excuse
passion.
the point, but are you saying it's a poor presentation?
No, I'm not saying that at all, and I would never say that. It is perfectly adequate. All right. Okay, perfect. I'm going to then ask you to not keep sharing your screen so we can move on to the next presentation. Your passion was good. Your passion was good. It really came through, and I love the practicalities that you brought to it. Well done. Well done. All right, let's move on to the next one. You said it wasn't anything worth being stressed about. Next one is going to be a tag team. Am I correct? Pedro, are you ready?
Yes, I am. If I can, let me just stop Shakir's one and let me share Jackie's one.
Okay, perfect.
All right, can everyone see the screen?
Yes, please put it into presenter mode as it looks particularly ugly like that. God, look at that wall of
How-
text.
Like
That's
this?
terrifying.
I
Like
know
this?
Okay.
it is. Why have I got San Francisco behind me? I am fascinated.
Refer back to middle-aged white lady comment. All right.
I've literally no
Okay.
idea like where that comes from. So sorry. I'm clearly sitting in San Francisco.
Right. Shakira, you're going to be the first one to ask a question on this presentation. All
I'm gonna
right.
ask
So you need to
hard
give it.
ones.
Yes. Yes. Perfect. All right. I'm going to mute myself and switch off. I look forward to this presentation. Your time starts now.
Cool. Fantastic. So yes, there are a couple of slides that are walls of text. I apologize in advance for that. But it'll enable me to talk through it, and I'm very happy to share my PowerPoint with you afterwards so you can have all the information at your disposal. So my topic that I'm going to be focusing on is looking at crisis pregnancies in South Africa. This is a huge problem in South Africa. Crisis pregnancy would be a pregnancy that is unplanned and where the mother is unsure of what the future of her and her child will be, or if there should even be a future. So it's an unplanned pregnancy where there is fear or trepidation or concern around the future of the pregnancy or the future of the child. There are massive problems with this. So if you want to move on, Pedro, there are three huge problems that are caused by crisis pregnancies in South Africa. The first is child abandonment, where, and we'll go into each of these in more detail, but thousands of babies are abandoned and primarily unsafely in South Africa every year. Unsafe abortions, which obviously result in massive health problem, and then just a lack of support. So even if moms do want to keep their children, there's very, very little support for them. So let's look at just child abandonment. Again, sorry for the wall of text. It's estimated that around 3,500 children, so this is South Africa, just South Africa, are abandoned alive each year. So those are the live babies that are found. Abandonment can be anything from in a hospital to being left in the veld to being found in a bathroom to being dumped on the doorstep of a children's home, being put in what you call a Moses basket, which is like the hole in the wall. But there are around 3,500 that are abandoned. These children, the ones that are found alive, then land up in a system of foster care, adoption, children's homes, all of which is incredibly traumatic for the child. It's not ideal for a child, not in the best interest of a child at all. And as we know from the Children's Act that we've done, things should always be done in the best interest of the child. Generally speaking, foster care and adoption, it's such a broken system that children land up very traumatized. The other thing to notice is I've kept saying that these are the alive babies that are found. They say 2/3 of babies who are abandoned die. So the number of abandonments in South Africa is actually closer to about 10,000 babies a year, which is a ridiculously high number and really is a crisis for our country that very few people are looking at and the government really isn't doing very much about. The primary reason that moms will abandon their child is because they have no support in a crisis pregnancy. They feel unseen, they feel unheard, they feel like they've got no one to talk to, they feel like they've got absolutely no options. And the two main reasons that they will ultimately end up abandoning a child would be financial hardship. So they go, I can't keep this child, or familial rejection. So I can't tell my family I was pregnant. My family's going to reject me. The spouse rejects me. The boyfriend, whether there is one or not. There's no support. So there's financial problems, and then there's no people support, the resource of people. What research has shown over and over again across the world is that many mothers in crisis would keep their children if they had the necessary support. So interestingly enough, talking about social work, I've landed up focusing on this because I have this picture in my head, which keeps me up at night, of a mom going to a social worker and who's pregnant and going, I want to give my baby up for adoption. And the social worker goes, well, why? And she goes, no, well, I don't have a job and I can't keep this child. And the social worker looks at her and goes, okay. And that's like the end of the conversation. And that is absolutely devastating for me. I don't think that that should be a reason for a mother to not be able to raise her child. And I don't think that moms are talked through their options or given the support that they needed. The other thing to realize is that there's no safe abandonment laws in South Africa. So in many countries, you can anonymously abandon your child either at a hospital or at a police station or at one of these like hole in the wall kind of setups where you can put your baby in that. And that's legal. You can legally do that anonymously. In South Africa, that doesn't exist. They believe that if they did that it would promote more abandonments. They think that more moms would abandon their children because they can now do it anonymously, which is absolute rubbish. It would save so many children's lives if that could if that could be a law like it is in so many other countries. And so moms feel like they have no option. They've got nowhere they can leave this child. They don't want to be known. They don't want to be judged. They feel like they can't tell anybody about this. And so leaving a baby in the veld or in a toilet or something like that is for them their best solution that they can come up with. There is also no way for illegal immigrants to place their children in alternative care. It's also not possible in teen pregnancies. We covered this when we looked at the Children's Act. A teenager under the age of 18 may not give their child up for adoption without parental consent. And so many teen pregnancies, they'll take the baby and instead of telling their family because they feel that they'll be kicked out or whatever it is, there we have again the lack of familial support. They'd rather just abandon the baby rather than have to try and talk through the options with a family who might not understand. The final problem in this is that many abandoned children don't actually make it into the formal adoption child protection system. And then they become targeted for human trafficking and they become sold, and the absolute horrors of what that can entail is huge. So the problem of child abandonment is absolutely massive and is probably the key problem when it comes to crisis pregnancies. The next major problem is unsafe abortions. Thanks, Pedro. In South Africa, we have a really progressive legal system when it comes to abortion. But even though we've got this, so in our country, abortions are allowed without for no reason. Anybody can access an abortion up to 12 weeks. Between 12 and 20 weeks, you can access an abortion with a written allowance of a doctor. And there can be many reasons for that. And socioeconomic reasons are considered a reason to abort up to 20 weeks. And this is incredibly progressive. Many countries have much stricter laws around abortions. But even though we have those very progressive laws, still around 50% of abortions take place outside of registered health facilities. So many, many women are still choosing to use unsafe abortion providers. And this is for so many reasons. One is a lack of education. Many women are not actually aware of their abortion rights, and so they seek out alternative options. They think, oh, I'm 13 weeks pregnant. I can't get an abortion. I need to go somewhere else. I can't go to a hospital. There's also a huge religious and cultural stigmatization around abortion. And so women, instead of going to a hospital where they'll be seen or judged, or maybe somebody they know will find out, they'd rather, and I say it's in inverted commas, find a more discreet option. So they feel that if I can just find a backstreet abortion, nobody needs to know about it, I can quickly just take some pills and the problem will go away. There's also very, very little control over the advertising and operating of illegal sort of black market abortion providers. They pop up everywhere. I mean, the adverts are all over our street poles, and very little is done about that. Unfortunately, and it's interesting because child abandonment also has this problem where there is very little data in South Africa on unsafe abortion. But what they do have is that 23% of maternal deaths per year were due to abortion complications. So I don't have numbers for you, but that's a quarter of maternal deaths in South Africa are due to abortions. that have gone wrong. We also have the problem that many facilities refuse to perform abortions. Women have to travel really long distances to access the procedure. And again, what this does is it opens a door for illegal operations to occur in many of the more rural and poverty-stricken areas, so that women don't have to feel like, oh, I don't have to travel through to the hospital. I can just go and get it done at the little spaza shop down the road, which is obviously very problematic. And then finally, we've also got many women who travel into South Africa in order to access abortion services, because as I say, many of the other African countries don't have laws like ours. But then they're denied in hospitals to access the abortion because of their foreigner status. And again, they then land up turning to illegal providers. I've just recently counseled a woman who, a highly educated woman who went online to try and find an abortion provider, and found a very legitimate looking provider. These people had hired a shop out of a shopping center, very public, and so she thought it was all legit. And she almost died from bleeding out because of the medication that they gave her. It was an incredibly unsafe, and the abortion failed. She is still carrying the baby, and so these things can catch out even highly educated women because there's so little control over it. So 2 problems: child abandonment, unsafe abortions, and then the final problem is the lack of support. So in South Africa, 65% of pregnancies between 2015 and 2019 were unintended, and 36% end in abortion. Pedro, you can go to the next slide. The predominant cause, and we spoke about this earlier, is sexual activity without effective use of contraception, often through coercion. In many cases, and my lights have just gone off, and they don't want to go back on. Hang on. Nope. Okay, I don't even know if you can see me. Oh, you can. Okay. So 65% are unintended pregnancies, 36% end in abortion. This is because of without effective contraception, and often sex is happening through coercion. We have a huge surge of gender-based violence in our country. Many crisis pregnancies are linked to this. This might be an early sexual debut that is non-consensual, maybe due to child marriage, maybe due to rape. And many crisis pregnancies occur because of this. Studies have also shown that in South Africa, 1/4 of women are unable to say no to sex. So they're in relationships where it's not safe for them to share their needs and be able to say no and deny having sex. Having an unintended pregnancy can cause many women and girls to drop out of school and the workplace. And then, as Shakir was sharing, we then continue a cycle of poverty that occurs there. And workplaces are absolutely shocking. Another woman that we were helping was raped. She had the police report that she was raped. She literally took that to her employer and said, look, I was raped. I've landed up pregnant. I'm going to need just time off for going to the clinic. And they basically fired her because of that. They're like, well, other people clearly want your job more than you. And so even women who don't want to lose their jobs because of some of the devastating ways employers work, they can lose their jobs because of this. Many pregnant women and girls and new moms face stigmatization because often it's always the woman's fault, which is unbelievably shocking. They often are abandoned by, it's called spousal abandonment, but actually just the guy who was involved is out of the picture. Family can reject them, the jobs can reject them. They then enter into financial hardship. And all of this is on top of the challenging nature of pregnancy, birth, and raising a baby. You know, pregnancy, birth, and raising a baby is incredibly hard for a person in the most luxury lifestyle. It's hard. And to put all of that on top of it, it just makes it near impossible for many women. Teenage and preteen pregnancies is at crisis level in South Africa as well. And of course, we have the complicating facts of rape culture. Their power dynamics is a lack of education on reproductive and sexual rights. And so many young women are very vulnerable. Once pregnant, many young girls or teens are not given permission to determine what they want. The family kind of takes over and they determine what will happen to this pregnancy, what will happen to this child. And the mom doesn't realize that she actually has rights. So that's a summary of the problem of crisis pregnancy. So the three key problems, if you remember, are child abandonment, unsafe abortions, and a lack of support. So the solution, this is one of many solutions, but it's the one that we're working with at the moment, is to create a crisis pregnancy center. The two photos of the little boys on the right are two little guys who've already come through this process and who are growing up with their mums. You can go on to the next ones, Pedro. So in a crisis pregnancy center, there are three key things that will be done. The first is right up front, there's crisis counseling, which just gives mom a space to talk through the trauma of what's happening, to have a sounding board for what they're thinking, access to information on what their rights are, what their options are. It's also a place where we can then refer them to safe medical facilities. So if they want to have an abortion, there's safe abortion providers. If they're wanting to give birth, we have safe birthing options. If they want to give their child up for adoption, that we can refer them on for adoption services. In our case, the Pregnancy Crisis Center that we're creating actually has connections with a gynecologist who's offering her services for free and has access to a social worker who's offering adoption services as well. So they get crisis counseling, they can get referred to places where they can get active help. And then should they choose to keep their child, there's then ongoing support of, and we've identified 3 areas of support that's needed for a mom in order for her, if she wants to keep her child. The 3 areas of support are safety, support, and supply, is what we've called it. So if you go on to the next slide, Pedro, safety is creating a safe place for the mom. So it's ongoing counseling as needed in a safe and supportive environment. Our counselors are trained to be completely non-judgmental, to not to not enforce any of their own views on the client, to listen, to reflect, to help them find out their best solution, and to create a safe space where they can do that. Secondly, and the way we're doing it is because we're run by a church, we'll be connecting moms to their local church, but it doesn't necessarily need to be that. It could be, you know, if we have a mom who comes who's not Christian and not part of a church, we would find a local organization, if possible, that could take them on as a support structure going forward, if they're not kind of in our area. And this support structure hopefully will guide and advise and celebrate the life and journey and caring for the child. One of our ideas and our dreams is that this could take on the form of a family or a person kind of adopting a mom. So instead of adopting a baby, you adopt a mom and you become the village around her that will support and love her through a pregnancy and into caring for that is born, that it doesn't become this, oh my word, what am I going to do with this child? But rather, we're so excited this child has joined us. We're so excited that they're here, and what an awesome adventure we get to live. Of course, with all these things, with the safety, support, and supply, when a client comes in, as part of the counseling, one of the first things they'll do is do a full assessment with the client to find out, if they choose to keep their child, which of these they need. Because of course, if you get a mom who's coming and she's part of a very supportive family who loves her and cares for her, and you know, then the safety element, this adopt a mom element won't be as necessary, because they'll already have that. You know, if we get a client in who's got a good job, they won't need the support or the supply as much. So a full assessment is done on the mom, and then we try and meet their needs individually, because each one will be unique and each story will be unique. So that's safety. That's the safety we create. The next one, Pedro, is support, I think. Yep, is support. I've made a mistake on my PowerPoint. Okay, so the PowerPoint here is wrong. I'm so sorry. but the support is looking to help and create jobs,
Just
because
one.
obviously the moms will.
Please.
I'm sorry. So the support here would be around job creation and finding access to ongoing finances, so they're not dependent on handouts, basically. So this would be job creation. This would be education opportunities for moms. This would be plugging them into perhaps some studying. This would also be legal help to get access to SASSA grants, legal help to get, we've got a lawyer who's also volunteering their time to help get maintenance if there is a father involved. And so that the support is actually sort of a long-term view of how can we get this mom to be financially stable in the long term. And then the next one, which is supply, is for the first year of the child's life. So Pedro, you can go to the next one. We have a storeroom where we will be collecting nappies, wet wipes, clothing, formula, food parcels, prams, car chairs, all that kind of thing, that for a mom who's in this crisis, we can immediately kind of stop the bleeding. So, we can immediately say, it's okay, we can provide you with clothes, we can provide you with nappies to start off. So this is kind of the stop the bleeding. And then the support would be, okay, long-term, how are you going to support yourself? So we have a storeroom, but we also then network with other organizations. We've got one organization that is giving us birthing bags already, so sort of like a bag that mom can take to the hospital for giving birth. We've got somebody who's donating bum cream. We've got like 50 bum creams that have just arrived. It could also be networking for like women's shelters. So if there's a crisis of accommodation, if they've been kicked out, we network with the women's shelters in our area so that she can be safe. So that's the dream, that's the plan for the center. Where we're at the moment, you can go to the next slide. We have trained up 33 counselors last year. This is just a few of them who came to the graduation. So far, I think we've got 13 of the 33 who have volunteered already to help out with the Crisis Pregnancy Center. We have ongoing training with them online, and so they are ready to go and ready to be counseling moms. If you go to the next slide, we also have got a donation drive that's being run by somebody else to get all the items for our storeroom. Our storeroom is already getting quite full, but we also have a bank account so that people can make donations as is needed for printing costs, for access to other things that we might be needing. And then finally, our last slide is our advertising that is going out. At the moment, it's just electronic, but we will be printing these out as posters and flyers to go out so that women will know about us and will be able to access the services. And that is the end of my presentation.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to open up to questions. This is your opportunity to ask questions on the birthing crisis, the pregnancy crisis in South Africa, and to question a little bit on this. Shakira, I'm going to give you the first go because you had the previous presentation.
How did you get your pictures on a slide?
You see, I'm not so bad, Nick, if I can get pictures on my slideshow. Thank you. Even if I've got San Francisco behind me, at least I had pictures.
Okay, so the burning question that I had from the time we heard of it is the enablement. Are we not enabling people to just fall pregnant, do the thing, and come and dump? And I use this with utmost respect. You know, many people will have that mindset of like, you know what, if I fall pregnant, there is the Steuben Valley Pregnancy Center, and they'll take my baby. Do you understand my question?
I do. And I think it's a fallacy that, if we provide pregnancy support, that it will encourage pregnancies. I don't think that's the case at all. Nobody wants to be, oh yeah, I can just fall pregnant. Being pregnant is quite a big deal. So I don't think they go, oh, I can just fall pregnant because there's a crisis pregnancy center that'll sort it out. So that's the first thing. But I think the other thing that we will also be doing, and I didn't mention it, but the gynecologist who is volunteering her services will also do contraceptive counseling afterwards. And so that will, going forward, there is contraceptive counseling to try and prevent the problem as well, as
It was gonna be.
as well as yeah.
That was
Ultimately,
my question.
okay.
Yeah, no, the prevention is better than cure thing. I wondered what the SVPC's view on that is.
No, so we would encourage them to go and get contraceptive counseling.
Or just take out their wounds.
Exactly, something like that. Just go and have a hysterectomy. Quick solution.
They'll be wounded. There is somebody that I know that has a lot of nappies. I want to speak to them and see if we can get them to supply as well.
That'd be amazing. Thank you.
We need to go check
Okay.
Jackie out. You like superwoman, serious. I need to come and check you really. I'm just like the whole presentation through. I'm just like, wow, like an ambulance. Well done, man. Well done.
Yeah, it was an awesome presentation.
All right. Any other questions or opinions? Okay, I'll lead with one.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Who was that? Somebody asking?
No, we were saying okay.
All right. So when we look at the pregnancy crisis, if you go back to how many pregnancies are caused by rape and abuse, right? Should a focus be, or why was the focus not on teaching people about rape, abuse, and trying to prevent that from happening?
So it's interesting. I talk about upstream work. So as you'll know, we run a foster home, and we were busy basically catching the broken children at the bottom. We then realized that the problem is further upstream with the crisis pregnancies, which is why that became the focus, is to try and stop the bleeding there. Because if we can get moms to keep their babies and to have access to correct services, hopefully it means that there'll be less traumatized children in the system. Ultimately, we would love to go even further upstream, which is what you're talking about, which is to stop the problem in the first place. And that would be the next step in this, to create education programs, to go into schools, to educate young men on not raping people and gender-based violence and that kind of thing, but also to educate women on their reproductive rights and things like that. So that's further upstream work. And hopefully once the center is up and running, that would be the next step.
Okay. Perfect. I like that type of idea. So taking it into the social work perspective, when you are faced with somebody who has what would be a pregnancy disaster, pregnancy crisis as such, what skills should a social worker call upon or have that would help them navigate this with their client?
So what we were talking about in the counseling, I think, is critical. So non-judgmentalism is key. Many women are judged for this and feel pressured into certain decisions that they might not want to make. So the very first thing as a social worker you would need to have is being non-judgmental and to be client-centered, to allow them to lead in the solutions that they've already thought of or that work best for them, not what the social worker thinks is best for them. So I think that's first thing. I think the other thing that a social worker would need to have is access to the right information. One of my clients was told by the social worker, oh, you can just sign a piece of paper and then they'll take the baby away when you give birth and it'll all be gone. And she was saying to me, but what if I want to see my baby? And what if I want to just hold my baby before they take it away? And to be able to educate them on what their rights are. And the fact is, you can ask to see your baby. The baby is still yours until you sign. Even once you sign, you've still got 90 days. So I think it would be important for a social worker to be educated on those things, to be able to give them the right information, the most empowering information that they can possibly get. And then maybe the third thing to be aware of as a social worker is that you refer. You know, you would need to be able to refer them to providers. So you would need to know what providers there are in the community, or maybe even, you know, talk with them what their providers they're aware of. I think those would be 3 key things as social workers.
All right. And then finally, I'd like us to reflect a bit on the intersection between you and Shakira's presentation, right? So what impact do you see as poverty having on the center and on the pregnancy crisis? And Shakir, likewise, what impact does pregnancy crisis have on the rate of poverty? So we'll start with Jackie first, and then Shakir can give his reverse on it also.
Yeah, so one of the primary things I was saying, one of the primary problems in a crisis pregnancy is financial hardship, is the fact that women don't have access to jobs, don't have access to finances. And so many child abandonments are caused by the lack of access to finances and to poverty. So poverty, as Shakir was saying, also impacts healthcare, also impacts education. And so the reason that so many young women and girls are not educated on their reproductive rights and their sexual rights is because of this lack of good education and healthcare services, which is caused by poverty. So, yeah.
My turn.
Okay. And Shakir, on your side, yeah.
If you look at the schools, let's just take, for example, the schools. Firstly, they go to the government schools, right? And again, with all due respect to the government schools, lots of them do well. But lots of them as well, and if I may not be mistaken, majority catch a square jaw, as we say it. You with me? And the teenage pregnancy is absolutely high. And teenage pregnancy itself explains that I don't have a job. My job was to study. And now I'm in a situationship where I cannot get out of the pregnancy, and how am I going to support my child? And the father doesn't want to have anything to do with the child. A lot of times the girl ends up homeless. If the father is understanding that these things happen, he will take the child in, but that now becomes a burden on him. And so, again, I say the cycle just continues. And if we do not bring out precautions and try and get them to avoid it, or whatever it is, safe sex, etc., it just gets harder. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, perfect. Right, so I think the one thing that's highlighted here in both presentations is that very often problems are compounded. There's no problem that lives in isolation. They all sort of feed into each other. And what's wise to do is to pick a thread and sort of follow that thread and solve that problem that comes up. Any last questions on any of these presentations? Cornelia, what's your feel of the presentations? You've listened to them. You have heard what's being said, and what sits with you? What are you taking home with you?
Well, hi everyone. I'm definitely taking home that I would love to join the mission of helping out in the pregnancy centers. I myself am in Randfontein in the West Rand, so it's not too far. I just joined in, so I didn't hear the previous, I think it was Shaq's presentation. I was not present for that, but for this one, it's understandable. I'm in complete agreement as well. I do not agree with the fact that the insinuation to say that having support for pregnant women would increase the number of pregnancies or abandoned children. That's insane. But again, also, I agree with the comments that was made that it's an addition to poverty. It's a cycle, a never-ending cycle. That was the phrase I wanted. That is what I'm taking home with me.
Perfect, thank you. Katlego, are you with us?
Oh, hello, everyone.
So can you reflect a bit for me? What are you taking? What sat with you? What sticks with you?
I'm going to comment on Jackie's presentation because I just joined during, ne? What I picked up is that I think also it takes us back to family. We just can't say, yes, there should be some education. We should educate the kids at schools and stuff like that. But then again, let's take it back to family. Let's raise our kids in a way that we want them to know the stuff. Let us not put all the responsibility on the educators. I mean, charity begins at home. We can't expect a kid. I was going to a church service late at night on Friday. There were school kids on the road near taverns. And then my question was, what are the parents to these kids saying? What are they asking themselves, where are my kids? If it's late at night, my kid is not at home. I think some things we have to start at home, at the home level.
Okay, I like that feedback. Is there any response to that feedback?
Just my 2 cents, if I may, Nick.
Okay.
I absolutely agree with those comments. Charity does definitely start at home. And we also definitely need to start talking to our boys about living with women and teaching them about women and young girls. Because again, everything does start at the young level where children will go to school and it starts at school. Instead of us as parents teaching these children at home, they are teaching each other amongst themselves with what they learn amongst each other. So that is very problematic when we want to, as she said, for example, the kids are at a bottle store and the parents might not even know where their children are. We need to become more responsible. We need to be teaching responsibility as well as accountability. And it will start there once we parents also begin to be accountable for our children as well as the lack of discipline around our own children.
Okay, I like that. I like that feedback. So you'll see that this project runs sort of on the one thread, and you've picked up on another thread, and you've said, you know what we can do is we can actually also do things that support this by using different types of approaches, such as educating within families, teaching young boys these skills, etc. Last person for feedback, then we're going to wrap up. Portia, I know you are a guest today, but what stuck with you? What stays with you when you think about everything that you've been presented with? Portia, you might have to unmute yourself. Okay, it could just be some load shedding issue. All right, that being said, Well done on the first two presentations. I'm very happy to hear that. Let me just explain again what is happening. So next session we are having, it's Gosejo, yes? And Cornelia, would you like to do a presentation on a social work topic that you researched for us?
I would if you would just get me up to speed, because I was doing a previous course, so I did not manage to catch up, but I'm catching up. So
No problem.
is it a self-chosen topic, or do you give me a topic?
So I want you, you pick something that you are passionate about, that you want to inform us about. So you go, you do the research and you say, this is the situation in South Africa. These are the skills a social worker needs, and these are potential solutions to the problem. And the goal of it is to educate each other on what different issues are and how we can address it within the social work field. So it's completely up to you to pick a topic. So Shakir, for example, he chose poverty, and he focused in on the issue of poverty in South Africa, what the solutions to poverty could possibly be, and what we should consider. His was very policy based. Jackie chose pregnancy, and her solution was more like, this is how a center does it, and this is the skill. So up to you. You can choose students at school, you can choose schooling, you can choose whatever does it for you. You bring your passion through to this. Okay.
Awesome, I got it.
All right.
So that's what.
So guys, that's the next session. You will present for 20 minutes, have 10 minutes of questions. Please remember to send your presentation to the social worker, even on the group, so that the social worker can check it for you, make sure everything is good. That counts as supervisory hours for your social work qualification, and it makes sure that we are actually all learning within it. I'll provide that email address again on the group.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending. And I hope you guys have a beautiful evening ahead of you, and I will see you guys ready at the next class for the next topic. Thanks again, presenters. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.